Well, let's take you live.
Here's the U.S. vetoing calls for immediate Gaza ceasefire at UN. Do you consider yourself a journalist? No, I do not. I have done some, but not really. I do not consider myself a journalist at all. I'm very open about this kind of thing. I have always been a commentator. Real journalism is a noble pursuit. Editorializing is weak. I think real journalism also has a tendency to editorialize. But I've always been a political commentator. I've never been like a pure journalist ever.
To the United Nations.
Describe access journalism to the class. For those of you who don't know what access journalism is basically everyone in the fucking press pool of the White House. Okay. They basically report whatever the fuck the State Department is saying without any kind of scrutiny. Real journalism is supposed to be the age-old adage that I describe regularly, okay? If one person is saying that it's raining outside and another person is saying, no, it's sunny, journalism is not about writing both sides. Journalism is about opening the fucking window and taking a peek for yourself, okay? And then writing what is going on outside. Access journalism, on the other hand, is basically looking at whichever side is the state, whichever side has the power, and then uncritically writing what they said, and claiming that it's raining outside. If they are saying it's raining outside, even when it's not.
Where the Security Council is hearing arguments around the situation.
And the reason why they say access journalism is because the reason why it's called access journalism is because if you don't write whatever the fuck the State Department wants you to write, then you might actually lose access. So you choose not to be critical of those in positions of power because you're worried that they won't let you write about stories. They won't give you they won't send breaking news to you. You won't be able to break news.
In Gaza, let's have a listen in as the United States' Linda Thomas-Greenfield is currently speaking.
More, period. And so that ultimately we can together help create a future in which Israelis and Palestinians live in states of their own, side by side, in peace. We're committed to engaging constructively on our resolution with you all in the days to come to that end. And we will continue to tirelessly engage in direct diplomacy and negotiations on the ground. Thank you.
Representative of the United States for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
谢谢主席女士。主席女士，中方
Okay, we're just going to leave that ongoing conversation in...
Damn, dude, yeah, let's not hear from what they have to say. They might be saying some shit that's anti-Israel. You know, we can't be having that.
The UN General Assembly, but what's been happening in the last few moments is that there was an Algerian draft resolution about a ceasefire in Gaza. There were 13 votes in favour of that call for a ceasefire. The UK abstained and the US blocked its passage with a veto. This is the third time that the United States has exercised its veto, I should say, on Gaza at the UN Security Council. We were just hearing there from the United States Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield. Well, to unpack all of that, I'm joined now by Neda Tawfiq, who is our UN correspondent. Neda, if you could just walk us through what...
The U.S. ambassador also said this.
And to do this the right way so that we can create the right conditions for a safer, more peaceful future.
Yeah. If they do a ceasefire right now, they won't have the right conditions for a ceasefire later.
future. And we will continue to actively engage in the hard work of direct diplomacy on the ground until we reach a final solution.
I'm sorry, what? Hey, yo. What the fuck? Did I hear that correct? Did she say we're
on
doing
the ground until we reach a final solution?
Damn, that's a solid phrase to use here, you know?
Exactly has happened.
Yeah, well, Regini, the United States again blocking.
She's like, you, U.S. ambassador to the UN, be like, work sets you free. Actually, did you guys know that?
An attempt in the UN Security Council to get a resolution through that calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. It is something the United States has objected to. They have, of course, supported its ally Israel. And
again, every single aspect of this coverage is completely devoid of the details, which are not just like minor details. Details such as what the terms and conditions are for the ceasefire that the Palestinian side has put forward. Okay? And how reasonable those terms and conditions are. We covered it extensively on this broadcast, but I can go through them again if you would like. It's basically like a moving up in 3-month increments to a permanent ceasefire that will have a similar hostage swap, like in the same way that they did in that 7-day ceasefire that happened a while back. And yet, for some weird reason, for one, obviously Netanyahu said no to that, and two, the media just did not really cover Netanyahu's unreasonable proposals. And that you know the very reasonable proposals shown by given by the Palestinian side. So what's up with that? The proposal didn't have room for the highway splitting the strip into their building. Okay, well, did you cover the UN experts claim that Israeli forces killed, raped, and sexually assaulted Palestinian women and girls? I did not see a lot of news outlets cover that shit. Oh, sorry. They're Palestinian, not Israelis, of course. Yeah. Covering what Hamas says supports terrorism? Yeah, exactly. Of course. Because if you show that there are, if you show in the ceasefire process what the other side is saying, well, they're the bad guys. So you can't fucking show what they're saying. Obviously, duh. That's terrorism.
And their military operation, its attempt, as Israel says, to go after Hamas. But quite frankly, almost the entire rest of the council has for months now been begging for a UN Security Council resolution. The Arab group of nations warning that what is taking place in Gaza amounts to the collective punishment of Palestinians, something the UN agrees with as well, saying the Arab group of nations, it amounts to a genocide. And we heard the Algerian representative speak before the vote, and he warned that the situation in Gaza was reaching a critical juncture where the call for a ceasefire would soon lose significance. He said every Palestinian is a target for death, extermination, and genocide. We must ask ourselves how many innocent lives must be sacrificed before the Council deems it necessary to call for a ceasefire. So we saw there 13 members endorsing that call for a ceasefire, the United Kingdom abstaining, the United States blocking it. And the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that the resolution was wishful and irresponsible. She actually put forward this argument that the resolution would put in jeopardy.
Experts from the UN question about a statement by the UN experts from the UN Human Rights Office yesterday expressing alarm over allegations of human rights violations to which Palestinian women and girls in the West Bank, in Gaza, is subjected to. They said, the UN experts said that Palestinian women and girls in detention have been subjected to multiple forms of sexual assault by male Israeli army officers. At least two of them were reportedly threatened with rape and sexual violence. Have you seen those allegations?
So,
do you have any reaction?
I have seen the allegations.
Yeah, I think she's Turkish.
I cannot independently confirm the reports. I will say that we have been clear that civilians and detained individuals must be treated humanely and in accordance with international humanitarian law. We strongly urge Israel to thoroughly and transparently investigate credible allegations, ensure any accountability for abuses and violations, and that will continue to be our position.
Have you heard back from your previous call for investigation into the killing of Hind Rajab? Hind Rajab killing of.
We have heard that those investigations are underway. It's our understanding the investigations have not yet been concluded.
Sorry, can I just ask you?
Yeah.
When you said you had no independent confirmation.
Guys, you don't understand. United Nations is Hamas. It's a bunch of nations united for Hamas. United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner actually is United Nations Hamas Rights Office of the Hamas Commissioner. I don't think you guys get that. See, the trick is everyone that opposes Israel is Hamas. Okay? Hamas has infiltrated the United Nations. And they're doing Hamas shit. Like reporting on human rights violations against Palestinian women and girls.
Of what the UN experts found.
I mean, the underlying
I get it,
allegations.
but did you ever have confirmation of what Hamas allegedly did to Israelis who were women, girls who were?
There are Israeli medical experts who have testified to that, and that is something we consider credible. Yes.
Wait, what was that? Was that the case? Because it feels like a lot of the reporting that was conducted at the time was literally taken back quietly, retracted quietly, like the New York Times. Listen. Pretty sure that you are looking at actual testimony that has been reconfirmed by additional experts. And saying that that's probably not credible versus no third-party confirmation that you said is credible and that you very clearly have been have repeated time and time again. That's interesting.
So you consider those?
Yeah. The testimony did not come from medical experts. The testimony actually came from Zakat, which Israeli journalists, another convenient thing that he's failing to mention here, Israeli journalists at Haaretz and also even, the other one, Ynet as well, have picked apart personally for doing atrocity propaganda on October 7. So it's wild how much staying power misinformation has in this situation. Okay? No, I'm not even talking about Gray Zone. I know that they were the first to get there and Electronic Intifada. But it's important to mention that it's not just them that picked apart the testimony. Okay? Haaretz did it as well. And that is a little bit harder to fucking shake the credibility of when you look at the situation. It's an Israeli paper. Okay? An Israeli paper that writes articles about like the Israeli occupying force and the beautiful cuisine that they've cultivated inside of Palestinian homes. Okay? They write puff pieces about the IDF from time to time. So when those guys are the ones who are fucking shitting on the atrocity propaganda, I feel like that's pretty significant. I feel like the American State Department should probably take back some of the sentiment that they've expressed. What's your opinion on the upcoming Saddam Hussein movie? Do you think it's a movie like that is necessary? I feel like they're just making this movie to portray him as almost innocent and talk about his childhood and how they made him the person he became, just so that after the audience watches the movie, they will romanticize all the disgusting and horrible shit he did. What? Brother, this dude was fucking executed. What are we talking about? Literally in one of the holiest days for the Islamic world. What do you mean? Done. It's done. It's dead. He's super dead. Joel Severud, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs. It's from an American soldier's POV. That's so funny.
Instances to be confirmed, but not what the UN.
We have seen this report, and we have called for an investigation to confirm whether the allegations are true or not.
I get it. And if you're willing to take the word of Israeli, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you're willing to take the word of Israeli medical experts on what happened to the people who were abducted on October 7th, whose word are you willing to take? Or if not the UN,
A full, independent, credible investigation.
Would it have to be Israeli medical expert?
We are calling for that in a, no, it of course would not have to be an Israeli medical expert, a credible medical expert, a credible, I don't want to prescribe who it would be, a credible medical expert that can testify to it would be something we would look at, of course. It would not have to be Israeli.
Look at.
Yeah, but we won't look at the UN because they're not credible. Like, Israeli experts that literally get tarnished after the fact for doing atrocity propaganda by Israeli newspapers, those guys are credible. We will go along with that narrative for as long as we can. Okay. However, the UN, not credible. Sorry. No third-party verification from the UN is necessary here. We're just not going to fucking agree with it.
I'm not going to, because that's one where we have seen the outcome of the investigation and are able to opine on it. I'm not going to opine on a matter.
Well, yeah, but you didn't do your own independent investigation into what I think it's pretty much well accepted by everybody that there were instances of rape and sexual assault on October 7th.
And the circumstances very much matter. And it is a well accepted fact with respect to this.
Yeah, hold on. Just let me finish. But you're saying that you have what you consider to be independent confirmation that those attacks, those assaults happened.
It is independent confirmation. It is a well-accepted fact because the investigations produced credible evidence that not just the United States accepted, but countries, let me finish, countries around the world accepted. With respect to these new allegations, we want to see an investigation, and we will, of course, look at the investigation and make our judgments when that investigation is concluded.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they won't. Okay. Or the judgment will be on the side of Israel, as always. Dude, there is nothing more demonstrative of the fake news media and the way that they fucking manufacture consent happening in real time than everything that has happened post October 7. Okay? It has basically been a perfect example, a perfect demonstration of how in real time consent is manufactured. I don't know what else to show you other than just show you exactly what the State Department is doing and has done. Is there actual evidence of the sexual assaults? No, there aren't. There aren't victims. There are third party, like there are secondhand witnesses that have brought forward incredible claims. Okay, like ripping off women's tits and shit like that, like really, really visceral claims. Okay. There is one guy. There was like one claim that the New York Times reported on that was the closest to being credible, and then the family of that person came out and literally said, "What the fuck are you? This is not what we told you at all. Why are you reporting on this?" And the New York Times basically quietly retracted the article, and internally they even took down the Daily episode that they had put forward on the mass rapes that had happened. The other claims that came from Zakat The other claims that came from zakat, like babies being thrown in ovens and things of that nature, were also very openly discredited by Israeli newspapers, claiming that zakat was more interested in boosting its own profile and pushing forward atrocity propaganda. Haaretz wrote about it as well. Yes.
Talks that the United States is in at the moment with Israel, Egypt, and Qatar to reach a temporary pause in the fighting for 6 weeks to get all of the hostages released. And the United States has actually proposed its own alternative resolution, which registers its opposition to Israel's plans of a ground incursion into Rafah. And the ambassador said to council members that their proposed resolution was not, as some members claimed, an American effort to cover for an imminent ground incursion, but rather it was a sincere statement of their concern for the 1.5 million civilians who have sought refuge in Rafah.
I want to
so
ask
that U.S.
you,
proposal is still being debated.
Just to break this down a bit so that our viewers can kind of understand all the different things that are being tabled. Algeria tabled something. The US vetoed that. The UK abstained. What exactly has the US put forward then as its own draft, and what's happening with that?
Yeah, so the United States over the weekend had signaled they were going to veto this resolution by Algeria, and they have proposed an alternative resolution. Now, that resolution for the first time does use the word ceasefire, but it calls for a temporary ceasefire as soon as practicable. Now, that very much echoes language that we have seen President Biden using publicly, saying that he's used that in talks with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, again, to get that temporary pause in fighting for 6 weeks to get the hostages released. So it very much echoes that language, but it does have also strong language on the U.S. opposition to an Israeli ground incursion into Rafah, saying that that would harm more civilians. It would forcibly displace them potentially into neighboring countries, a reference to Egypt, saying it would be a threat to international peace and security. And so, as I say, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, the U.S. ambassador,
I've never been more vindicated on my coverage of everything that Israel has done. I've never been more vindicated on my coverage on this broadcast, on the history of my political commentary career. Not to make this about myself, but on the issue of Israel. Okay? Over and over again, Israel has proven every single thing. And they've done it very openly. The barbarity, the violence, the inhumanity. It has been so flagrant, so obvious, so open. And yet, for some weird reason, people still choose to not see it. People still choose to act like that's not the case. There's so much evidence. There's so much overwhelming evidence. Something your haters brought up against you, which they're quiet now for some reason. They don't know if you noticed. No, because they left. That's it. That's how it goes. If you're right, they shut the fuck up and it doesn't matter. And they look for any moment to say that you're wrong, even when you're right. And if enough people also think you're wrong, it doesn't even matter if you're right. This is always the case. Like even the Al Ahli hospital. Like Forensic Architecture did another analysis recently, a couple days ago, 4 days ago now, showing that the Al Ahli hospital showing that the Israeli military's claim that the hospital was struck by misfiring Palestinian rockets from a salvo of 17, with most of the damage caused by unspent rocket propellant. The analysis showed that 17 rockets traveled at 1.8 to 2 kilometers at 500 to 630 meters a second and stopped flaring at a 1 kilometer altitude. 4 kilometers west of Al Ahli, according to an aerospace expert. These figures indicate that all rockets would have finished burning their propellant while still in mid-flight. These recent findings follow a previous analysis which debunked claims made by an Israeli spokesperson about 2 videos he alleged showed the rocket responsible for the hospital blast. The devastating explosion at the Al Ahli hospital has come to epitomize the information war surrounding Israel's post-7 October invasion of Gaza. Using our 3D model, we will continue to track the dynamic airspace over Gaza to challenge key pieces of Israeli disinformation. They're saying that all of the fucking rockets spent all of their fuel, so that it was an unspent fuel. It was the unspent fuel of the rocket that caused the massive fiery explosion is untrue. But it doesn't really matter, does it? You know why it doesn't matter? Because for many people at this point, this has nothing to do with like who actually did it. Or it doesn't matter as far as like Israel's capacity and tendency, I would say. Not capacity, but Israel's tendency to attack hospitals. Because Israel has shown time and time again that they are very much in the business of attacking hospitals and attacking medical professionals. They've laid siege upon every single hospital in Gaza since then. They've even infiltrated hospitals in the West Bank, if you recall. It does not matter. People only use the Al Ahli hospital as an out. They used it because they were looking for any reason to say, no, see, Palestinians are doing it to themselves. I felt like I was going crazy because I was like, even if, and I said it at the time, even if this was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket, what difference does that make when so Israel has openly attacked this very same hospital, Al Ahli, 2 days prior, and continued to attack hospitals even after Al Ahli? Like, what's the argument here? That it's only appropriate when Israel attacks hospitals? Only Israel gets to kill medical professionals? Only idiots get persuaded by that? No. People with motivated reasoning get persuaded by that. People who have all the motivation. People who have all the motivation in the world to try and defend Israel's indefensible acts will get motivated to use that. Many use it nefariously as a way to distract from the major point of contention, and others do it because they're fucking dirty little careerists like this person. Okay? A person who, by their own admission, knew nothing about Israel, the history of Israel, the history of Palestinians, and only learned post-October 7, and has demonstrated time and time again that they are not knowledgeable at all about the issues they speak of. Wrathbone, thank you for the raid, brother. Hope you had a good stream. Big fan of your TikToks, by the way. You're killing it. I'm glad that you're on the platform and streaming as well. Yeah, the Houthinis. No, the truth is no one knows more about getting genocided and kicked out of their homes than the Jews. I'm not a historian, but with all the heated Twitter conversation, I'd read a book or two. If you truly care about the Palestinian people living in peace and safety and not getting settled or colonized, you should strongly support the existence of Israel. This thread will educate you on the 2,500 years of history before 1948. It's like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Because the idea is that, like, because Jewish people were kicked out of historic Palestine 2,000 years ago, okay, 3,000 fucking years ago, the very same Jewish people that stayed behind, okay, the very same ancestors that actually fucking stayed behind, right? And all the people that lived in that region for 3,000 fucking years, like, we shouldn't care about those people. It blows my mind. You have to care. You have to understand history from 3,000 years ago, but you also have to not look at history from 1948 and onwards as well. Like, what ridiculous, illogical trap is this? You know? Like, how am I supposed to make sense of this?